Could I invite the indigenous representative from the Latin American and Caribbean region?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We would also like to take this opportunity to welcome the holding of this informal meeting on the drafting of a concise and action-oriented outcome document. We would also like to congratulate the 4 advisors you have appointed, including Dr. Myrna Cunningham and Mr. Les Maleser. We are sure that they will make a valuable contribution to preparations for the World Conference. The Latin American and Caribbean region is committed to fulfilling its role as part of the preparatory process. We held an event last year in Guatemala, and in June 2013, we attended the meeting in Alta, Norway. And as a result of our efforts, we produced the outcome document of Alta. Mr. President, we are pleased that the Alta outcome document was welcomed by the General Assembly and attached to the letter of the President of the General Assembly, and it was also signed by 9 states. It has also been given an official UN document symbol, as has been mentioned. We would like to highlight the importance of the Alta document. It contains a number of fundamental principles important to our peoples and our aspirations. We would like to reiterate the importance of a firm commitment to drafting an outcome document that respects the rights of Indigenous peoples. Mr. President, we would like to highlight some of the issues of relevance to the Latin American and Caribbean region. As of today, we will continue to support discussions on these various topics. The first point is that for Indigenous peoples, the declaration, the UN declaration, is an important step towards recognizing, promoting, and protecting the rights and freedoms of Indigenous peoples. The 46 paragraphs in the declaration offer guarantees for the full exercise of the collective rights of Indigenous peoples. In particular, the right to land, territory, resources, culture, identity, and language, as well as the right to employment, health, and education, and the right to self-determination. The second point is that we would urge national and international organizations, as well as United Nations system entities and member states, to include in their policies or legislation as appropriate provisions to guarantee the implementation of the Declaration's provisions. We believe it is important to introduce structural reforms in states in order to properly implement the rights of Indigenous peoples as set forth in the Declaration. Third point, we would like to highlight the importance of free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous peoples in processes affecting their future, including in the area of administration. We would like to see the holding of a study with regard to free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous peoples. The right to such consent should be standardized. Fourth point, Indigenous peoples should participate fully in an interactive dialogue and also in the process of harmonizing national laws with existing international instruments and commitments already made to effectively implement the rights of Indigenous peoples that are set forth in ILO Convention 169, the United Nations Declaration, and other such documents. Fifth point, we encourage states to reaffirm the rights of Indigenous peoples to their full enjoyment of economic, social, and cultural development while fully respecting their right to their identity and their culture. In this regard, the sustainable development is extremely important. Sixth point, the full participation of Indigenous peoples is needed in order for the principle of free, prior, and informed consent to be upheld. And I mention this particularly in regard to the activities of the extractive industries and corporations in that sector. We recommend that states cease the practice of allowing such corporations to begin operations on Indigenous territories without the free, prior, and informed consent of Indigenous peoples. We want to ensure that the practice of leaving Indigenous peoples dispossessed or bereft of their land or resources does not continue. We would like to see lands returned to Indigenous peoples, lands that have been taken from them. Mr. President, we would like to reiterate that in this process or its results, as part of this process, nothing should be interpreted as undermining the rights of Indigenous peoples and their right to self-determination. The rights of Indigenous peoples, as set forth in various international instruments in the area of economic, social, cultural, civil, political, and education rights, as well as their spiritual rights, all of these rights should be respected, as set forth in the ALTA document. We will participate willingly and fully in the preparatory process. And we would like to ensure that all elements of the preparatory process are respectful of the rights of Indigenous peoples. Thank you very much, Mr. President.